Hey guys, it's Matt. I'll keep the update as to what I'm working on for just about a minute or a minute and a half. I think most of you will be interested what I'm going to present on the back end here. A just absolutely bizarre exchange, again, with one of my friends. I have no idea where these people are coming from. I mean, we just don't have a way to explain it anymore. I called it we're standing on the bank. Reality is moving into something we don't recognize or understand. We're standing on the bank of the river. They're on, how would I call it, the ship of fools on the river of insanity. They're on the ship of fools on the river of insanity, and we're standing on the bank. Like, didn't wasn't there a crowd that waved goodbye to the love boat? Bye, Pacific Princess. Don't get mugged in Puerto Vallarta. So I'm going to present that email exchange with it was with Tony. But let me just give you the update, guys. The presentation yesterday was just so all over the place that I missed a lot of things, and I'm working on a formal presentation, like a PowerPoint slide presentation. Probably no jokes, no kidding around, very serious, because this thing and where they're taking reality and society is very serious. So, for example, I appreciate your good comments on the last video, helping me organize my thoughts. But of course, the mental aspect of all this, it's like, well, how did I miss that? I mean, of course, it's a huge part of it. Meaning, once you have people living a certain way for such a certain amount of time, then they believe in every bit of it. Then they start to manifest it, even on the basic level, the placebo versus nocebo issues, psychosomatic issues, where illness is brought on by just constant fear, stress, worry, anxiety, doing it to yourself. That's psychosomatic. There's the hypochondriac factor times a million in this thing. So in the presentation yesterday, how did I, you could say, well, how did I miss it? Well, you just talk for an hour and you miss a lot of things. That's why I'm organizing it in a more formal fashion. Now, one last thing before I talk about the exchange with Tony. Guys, it's much safer, like in terms of not getting the video, like, banned or something, to just talk like this. I know when I do slides, there's no doubt that it can immediately read everything I type. If it gets banned or whatever, it does not appear tomorrow. Just like last time, if it does not appear tomorrow, then something has happened to it. I will ask Rob to put it on free voice. And as I mentioned, if something happens to it, I just won't play this game any longer with them, and it'll be 100% free voice for the future. Just so you know. But I think I don't have anything in the slides as of right now. I'm still working on it that I think would get it banned. That's why I'm going to try to put it on YouTube first. But if you don't see anything tomorrow, always make sure, just check over at Free Voice. It's just simple as typing it in. Remember.io. Always find me there. Now with Tony, I had an exchange with him. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, about Hong Kong. And remember, Hong Kong was at 3 McD's. I don't know if that included a Happy Meal or not. 3 McD's. That's the big. That's the end result. Just 3 out of 7 million people through 6 months. Well, how doesn't sound very serious. What's going on? They had three and only three, with 7 million people living on top of each other. It's my favorite example of all time. So the point is not to revisit that. I went back and forth with Tony about that, and it was the same old scripted, boop, 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 boop. My favorite Martian antenna came out, and it's like they run a script, and in addition to running scripts like, oh, they know how to handle it, it's already a mass culture, they'll send you links. They'll send you a bunch of links because they can't think through it themselves. They have to send you, oh, look, here's an article that tells me what to think, and they'll send me a link. Like, I emailed someone yesterday, a family member, and I said, answer this question. And I said, don't send me a link back. Do not send me a link or point me to something or point me to Snopes. Just for a change, just think it through. You can do it. Sorry. So yesterday I decide, and somebody should be saying to me, Matt, why do you keep subjecting yourself to this? I don't know. Maybe I should learn my lesson. You're absolutely right. I was looking at China, and like Nigel there has confirmed that right after, I don't know what it was. It was like May or June of last year they declared victory. And I said, well, what's the official? If you Google, just Google search, how many McD's with Happy Meal in this country? The chart comes up, and the first chart that comes up is usually cases, not McD's, but cases, orders for Happy Meals placed. So China graph, it hasn't changed. The graph shows cases, and it just goes right down to basically zero, and it goes level, like no cases, no McD's. It might say sometimes like 15, 20 cases every 2 weeks will amongst 1.2 billion people. That's basically zero. That's zero, and so it's just level. The graph is completely level, basically zero. So I print screened it like a dummy. I sent it over to Tony. you know. And if somebody, you should be screaming at me. I'm not going to do it again. I can't. But Matt, you've said that before. I have. I know. This is a tough time for all of us. We don't know how to handle this. It's complete insane asylum. That's what they think of us, and that's what we think back at them. So I sent him the chart. I said, "How is this possible?" And I said to him, "Don't send me a link. Don't just think it through. Think it through. It started there. It started there. So it would have gone unchecked there. The place where it starts and goes unchecked is where you can't just put it back in the bottle, or you squeeze out the toothpaste and you just try to put it back. You can't. Would be the worst where it started. But they got it under control. They announced victory, like George Bush landing on the aircraft carrier, and it's just level zero. Well, hasn't anybody that was kind of ill from the United States flown back? See, the first time somebody would fly back, wouldn't it start all over again? Was You understand, guys? This is first grade. And he comes back to me and says, Matt, we've had this conversation. I sent you a few links on it. It's been explained and documented how an authoritarian government can step up and handle it. Honestly, guys, I don't know what to say to that. I don't have words. That is insane, insane. I believe we live in a gigantic. Now I'm going to say something insane. I'm just going to. I don't care. I don't care how this sounds to people. I believe we live inside a gigantic Mandela effect, where a Kit Kat dash is a symptom of it, where the world itself it's being literally transformed into something metaphysically, not just people, sending faxes and emails, and people in on it in this secret society, and people in on it, and regular men and women, metaphysically transformed into something else. And we are on the bank of the river. We are not on the ship of fools on the river of insanity. And we are getting farther and farther and farther. The entire reality itself. So, in other words, when Tony believes authoritarian government, Matt, that's the disadvantage of it. In this case, an advantage. It can just step up and handle it. What? It's 1.2 billion people across a country the size of the United States. They wouldn't, if you had combined all their police, all their military, everybody acting in perfection, they couldn't even get out to 5% of the population. You have 300 million people basically living on top of each other inside of 20 or 25 big cities. Just like any city, there's a district of poverty, a district of slums, a district where the apartment complex, a maximum occupancy is 4 per apartment, where they have 10 in the apartment. And he thinks somehow that through directives and telling soldiers and police and military what to do, they can keep what? You can't. If I had it would be like a swarm of like a giant bee's nest here, and just hitting the bottom of the bee's nest, and they just start flying up thousands and thousands. These are bees that can actually aren't all, they're not honeybees. They'd all be dead. Like bees, like the murder hornets or whatever, just swarming. The honeybees would be dead from the roundup. I couldn't control that. I couldn't get them back in, and if I had 100 people here to help me, we couldn't control that. That's what That's what I mean, guys. And anybody's like Matt, you don't have to. We see it. It is insane for Tony or anybody to say these scripted responses about somehow they can control the activities or the actions of 1.2 billion people. It would if it was just kind of under control. You could understand why they could use these examples. If it was just China is still at like 4,000 McDs over this thing. I mean, there's no way it is what they say it is if China has 4,000 McDs served with Happy Meal. This is not possible. It's just not. I think there's something causing illness, but not what they say. It's just who knows. But it'll be all the possibilities will be covered in my formal presentation tomorrow. But for him to, see, the reason I sent it to him, the chart was literally flat, and I said, there's just nobody that could possibly look at this without saying, Matt, I'll give you that. This doesn't make sense. How hundreds of thousands over here in the U.S. and Italy, and this is just where it started. It just went away. Like, I'll give you that, Matt. It just doesn't make sense. Like I've said 100 times, they're just not capable of it. And I'm going, guys, in my as we bring back theories on reality itself, I'm going way more sci-fi, way more into the absurd land. You cannot explain this stuff away with regular means anymore. So instead of me, when I was saying, or people would say, well, Matt, is that when you say Tony took the download? Yes, but even that is sort of us trying to explain it away with regular means, like somehow, somehow it literally took a download. And to me, the download, my understanding of the download is evolving into literally, and don't get triggered, hear me out. We're literally living inside of a gigantic Mandela effect. That is ultimately at the highest level what's going on. And for those triggered that don't see that Dolly with Jaws should have had braces, and you don't have any anchor effects, well, you do. You do. Does the world outside your window appear insane to you? Then you're Mandela affected. See, forget the association of the name with movie lines and Kit Kat dashes and all the little stuff in it. Although Australia moving is not very trivial, but forget all that. Is the world outside your window insane? Then you're, per this concept, Mandela affected. Reality itself is moving away from you. You are on the bank, waving goodbye to the love boat. I say hi to Isaac for me. Have Isaac make his famous cocktail. And where's Julie or whatever? So we're on the bank. It's the ship of fools in the river of insanity is sailing away. Not just how people are acting, the reality itself. I believe we're rooted somewhere else. There's no other way to explain it. So when I say way back when, I asked Tony all the famous Mandela effect, like, what is it, Forrest Gump? Life, he like I said 10 times, he gave all the answers I would want to hear, and then he kind of glitched out, and yeah, Matt, come to think of it, I'm going to change all my answers. And I went to Chris, I was like, he just took a download. And this guy, he's like, yeah, something happened to him. He just changed everything right on the fly. And it was, to me, it's not that any invisible, my favorite Martian little antenna went up. It was literally the ME, the Mandela effect. The reality itself was overwritten. He was overwritten. The way residuals tend to disappear. But guys, so again, if you're triggered by the movie lines and all the ME stuff, well, you would admit, most people watching this, the world out your window is insane. And are you going along with it, or are you standing on the riverbank seeing it? Well, are you rooted somewhere else? Then you're Mandela affected. See how that works? That's what it is. There's almost no other way to explain it. So that being said, guys, Tony comes back and he's like, authoritarian matter. See, it makes perfect sense to him. And in the past, or up until very, very recently, I would explain this away as he's just some sort of mind control. And some sort of download, some sort of mind control, some liminals, or his smartphone is overwriting his brain synapses. But the smartphone, it wouldn't be able to implant every single response that he needs to give me perfectly back. It's like the Goldilocks reality principle. The only way this could be happening, there would be nothing that could infiltrate him, like from a means or mechanisms we understand, like a download, like a mind control, where he's going to always say the same type of thing back to me and do it just present it so I'm not going to be able to show him the real hard evidence. He'll just say, and at some point, if he has to get away, he'll say, "I'll go research it myself." Then he'll go away from me. I'm literally think it's just a rushing river. The reality itself, the river, maybe it always changed slightly. It was just a slow flowing river. But now it's like rapids for whatever reason. And if Tony jumps into the river, he's going to be swept down. Wherever the reality is going, wherever the river is going, all the people around us are going with everything else down the rapids, the class 5 rapids. Somehow, and this is exactly how the Mandela effect works, we are on the bank and remember what once was before reality was taken down the river. So, um, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on, guys. And you can see this and understand this and accept this and have your inner knowing identify this as basically what's going on. Even if you don't notice a little movie line changes, one does not. I was going to say, well, one does have something to do with the other, but these small things, the movie line changes, to me, these are like symptoms or glitches, or perhaps I think reality has always been fluid like this, is always, and I think even now I have reset to a reality that was not 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and was it Peter that had, let me just repeat, get to before Peter's great comment he sent me via email. I think we're all, just because, for example, if I'm Mandela affected, or I see that I'm attached or rooted to a reality that once was, it doesn't mean that I'm immune to everything now. You're immune to, no, it just means we are rooted to a little bit farther back. I'm sure reality's changed in hundreds or thousands of different ways, and I just completely went along with it. In other words, I've taken the download. We've all taken the download. But there's like an accelerant of some kind. I don't know if the creeps are accelerating these changes, maybe because they have to, maybe because Levette would say they're running out of time or trying to stall time, or the stalled century, or whatever it is. When you move an entire reality off to the side on the 7-Eleven event, and you have a stalled century for their own means and mechanisms, that's going to create a lot of reality glitches, and maybe that's it. But who knows? It doesn't matter. We're here now, and there's nothing we can really do about it. So. There's a lot of ways. I'm sure. I think it's a natural process, a reality moving or evolving into something, and everybody just going along with it, like everybody taking the download. I think that is what the world is supposed to be. I think that's a natural thing. I think somehow maybe they've messed with it and accelerated it. But back to what Peter says, he said something like in an email, yeah, I mean, birds, for example. I've talked about birds, and the different. If you look up exotic birds, the range of colors of birds all over the world. You could have a bird with a bright yellow and red and a streak of green and orange and all these different colors of thousands of different birds. Now, there's just no way through anything we understand as normal evolution or Darwin process, birds, again, if you haven't looked at birds, guys, exotic birds, just do it on Google Image sometime. The prettiest exotic birds, the colors are, I don't remember seeing, no, I'm not pushing this into the Mandela effect or anything, but I'm saying I don't remember this much variant, this many incredible exotic birds as a kid, for example. But we have access to more now with the internet. But what Peter was saying, he's saying, yeah, basically saying, I agree. There's no way per Darwin. See, this thing evolved and it needed that exact color scheme of 10 beautiful, vibrant colors all through the breast. And nothing could evolve that way using Darwin's means of just the strong survive and evolving to get mates and avoid predators. It's absurd. Birds by itself proves that whole notion of what Darwin presents is absurd and impossible. But Peter was saying, Matt, maybe the reality is incredibly fluid. There was a time or an age, or Levette would say the age before Pisces. I mean, a long time ago, there was a time when just birds could just evolve or change almost overnight. Not quite overnight, but you know what I mean. Like where a bird for it to attract a mate, to just to tap into the reality that existed at that time and just change itself. Where some people postulate in the past, whatever the human being was at some point didn't need food, for example, and it's a devolution, de-evolution, degradation of a human being down towards the animal, and the people say, well, I don't want to go there, but down towards the animal. Now we have this disgusting alimentary canal, need to eat food, and so maybe we've been pushed there, but that would be something. You couldn't evolve from a being that didn't need food into one that now needs to eat and sit down. Anybody got a magazine? That sort of gross stuff. But Peter was saying, yeah, there might have been a time. Don't take this off the table, Matt. There might have been a time in history, whatever that means in terms of years or another age of the earth, where birds could just do whatever they wanted in terms of, and then at some point things change. We start a new age. The cement dries, and no bird that looks like a beautiful this and that is going to be able to, in just 100 or 200 generations, evolve into a different color or then become gray. Within this reality, you can only be what your parents were. That's what the notion of Darwin is so absurd, because there is not any documentation of anything being born that was different from its parents. No documentation exists. Zero on the I'll be sure strength. Zero on the strength. Zero. It's like, oh, what, you gave birth to what? Oh, a brand new little monkey, but you're a human being. Or the horse just gave birth to a rat. It's a horse. I'd like to take that bet. I'm gonna bet it's another horse. Yeah, it's another horse. You believe that shit? But so there's none of that. There's also nothing where if it's born a horse from another horse, it evolved into something before it died. So it was born a horse. Seabiscuit actually had babies, and then right before it died, it was a centaur. The top became a man. It liked to shoot arrows for some reason. It was like addicted to shooting arrows. It evolved into a centaur. Or that guy from the Coke commercial that blends cherry and vanilla flavors that they run every 5 minutes now. That doesn't happen. Something will die the exact same species that it was born as. How many examples does science have where that's been violated? Zero on the strength. So the Darwin, I mean, again, we could present this to Tony or whatever, and he's gonna be like, "You guys are out to lunch." Out to lunch when 100% of the documentation is on our side for hundreds of years. Anyway, guys, the point is, they're like Peter said, there could have been ages past where all of this stuff was possible. We just assume that ages past have to be just like this. Why? Well, look what reality is evolving into now, and think of what it could have been. So, to me, I think I was right initially in identifying the word download, but that was just a placeholder term because there's no way this stuff can be explained. And now, the more and more I think about it, it is it's an evolving of reality itself. It's a snowball rolling down the hill that everybody's stuck in the snowball, or it's a rushing river, and we are rooted somewhere else. We're rooted. You could say immune to it, rooted, standing on the bank of the river, identifying with what the parameters of what should have been, or older realities, where everybody else is just getting sucked down the river. So what I'm saying is the first I said about Tony in terms of his reaction to China, where just they have all the cases just dropped to almost zero by last June, and then it just stays at basically zero through now, which is from our understanding of what the world must be. Anything where that could be passed, like you cough and then that's anything that could be spread. Well, that's just not possible. There's like thousands of flights still coming and going to China, container ships going out, people that come in, the container captains, they come into port in Shanghai and they run around their brothels, and then they go back and take their rubber dog crap products to Chicago, and they go back, and people, there's people going back and forth. They didn't build the Great Wall of China, adopt the Great Wall of China, put the whole damn thing around China so nobody comes and goes, and do it in a month so we can really protect. But it took 200 years to build the Great Wall. The Great Wall of China is a reality breakdown in and of itself, guys. And this is where I don't know if I had a back and forth with Peter on this or if he mentioned this in his email, but he might have mentioned something like this. Like, we look at these ancient structures, just like the birds, where it's like, well, Matt, consider there's an age past where you just pick up a 3,000 pound block, change its atomic structure, place it, you know, grab the electricity from the air like Thor. Is that what these superheroes are there to represent? Do whatever you need to do. Great Wall of China could be produced relatively easy with 500 people. Who knows? I'm just saying, who knows what was capable in ages past? The problem we have is we always think that, well, exactly what was going on today must have always been. And why would we think that? That's wrong. You pick up, well, if I drop this, does anybody have an idea what might happen? Oh yeah, I bet, that would be a good sure bet if I could make that bet. It's going to drop. Maybe there's an age past where it wouldn't. Maybe there's an age past where, and I don't think it's right to think of it in terms of time, because this existed, but it just was so many years ago. But time where it would drop, but it would hover for a half second and then drop. Who knows? Who knows? But this is basically this type of thinking is basically the only way all this stuff can be explained. Evolution itself, impossible structures, things like that. That I'm going to just take it right back to Peter's bird example. At some point in what we call the past, something we don't understand, birds could simply do what they want with their colors instantly, over the course of just a few years, over the course of 100 years. Either way, it's just something that the reality, we floated down the reality river, and we're at a point now where human beings can't do that. Birds can't do that. But we should not be applying these standards to what was potentially possible in the past. And then if you go here or go there, then all this stuff, like how they build the pyramids, all this stuff, we don't have to know exactly how it was done, but the reality itself was probably much different, and it presented a means or a mechanism to get all this stuff done, whether it be building the pyramids or a bird evolving into the most colorful, brilliant, vibrant thing of all time. So the main point here, and I'm all over the place, and I'll just wrap it up, is Tony is likely, if what I'm saying is right at all, Tony isn't insane. And you know where I'm going with this. Tony isn't wrong. He's exactly in line with the reality itself. We're insane. We're wrong. We're in line with something that no longer exists. In Tony's world, we could only say, oh, he must be brainwashed or something, or some sort of download 5G. It's probably more like this, guys. In Tony's world, it just makes sense that what we knew about a V where you cough and spread it, or it just makes sense that one country just can get it under control. As insane as that sounds, and I know there's problems with that. I mean, if he were to sit with me here, and I'd ask him to explain that, because this Shenzhen has, we know there's 5 million people, at least in these two regions, living in utter poverty. Where there's 10 in a room, not one in a... How would they do that, Tony? Could you glitch him out? Could you blue screen him we can join reality bubbles? But I'm starting to think, guys, in his world, that just makes perfect sense. I don't know. Somebody screaming at me, Matt, you're going too far. He is on the download, but it's like mind control, smartphones. It's not like the whole reality's changed, and in his world it makes sense that a small, relatively small group of Chinese military and police could lock a whole country of 1.2 billion people down. That's still not possible in this reality. Okay, I hear you. But as I examine this stuff further, my explanations always go more towards what's out there, the crazy, the supernatural, and never back towards, regular means that we understand. Guys at Tavistock, faxing girls at Tavistock, and Sisik. Oh, Matt, don't you know they're all skull and bones? Oh yeah, that's how they pull this trick on the whole world, and not just this trick, the most massive trick that's ever been pulled of all time, but every other trick. What the Apollo, Mercury, and Gemini missions were, what the reasons for war, and it just, I'm always going to go at this point to the more supernatural explanation, than just guys and girls having little meetings. But I've said that before. All right, guys, a big presentation. If it doesn't come tomorrow, then I'll ask Rob to put it on a free voice. Something will have happened to it where it wasn't allowed, and that will be the end. If something else happens on YT, then I won't bother with it anymore. Freevoice.io.